Questions for reflection. In our first reading, we have a pericope, a portion of the 15th chapter of the book of Genesis, which tells us of the covenant God made with Abraham. God has always sought to communicate himself and enter into a relationship with the people he created out of love, in love, and for love. He made a covenant with Noah, and Noah's response led to the rescue of the entire created order from the flood. Now he makes a covenant with Abram, and in the response of Abraham, we find the key for ourselves in our own response to God's invitation to us. The key line, and I quote, "Abram put his faith in Yahweh, and this was reckoned to him as uprightness," end quote. And in his continued response, Abram's name is changed to Abraham. This always signifies a conversion in the Bible. The Catholic Catechism teaches us, and I quote, "In order to gather together scattered humanity, God calls Abram from his country, his kindred, and his father's house, and makes him Abraham, that is, the father of a multitude of nations. In you all the nations of the earth shall be blessed." The people descended from Abraham would be the trustee of the promise made to the patriarchs, the chosen people, called to prepare for that day when God would gather all his children into the unity of the church. They would be the root onto which the Gentiles would be grafted once they came to believe. The patriarchs, prophets, and certain other Old Testament figures have been and always will be honored as saints in all the church's liturgical traditions. And that's the Catechism, paragraphs 59 to 61. We are grafted onto the vine and made heirs of the promises of this covenant. We are sons and daughters of Abraham. He is our father in faith. We are invited, like him, to put our trust in the Lord. David the psalmist, through whom the Lord speaks prophetically and continues his work of making covenants, invites the stock of Abraham, his servant, children of Jacob, whom he chose, saying, "He is Yahweh our God. His judgments touch the whole world." And he continues, "He remembers his covenant forever, the promise he laid down for 1,000 generations, which he concluded with Abraham, the oath he swore to Isaac," end quote. We are heirs of the promises of God. Jesus is the fulfillment of each of the covenants in the Old Testament. He institutes the new covenant in his blood. We are in him now, spiritual children of Abraham. In the gospel for today's Mass, Jesus speaks of our response to the call of God, which began with our baptism into him and incorporation into his body, the church. We are to bear good fruit, fruits of the kingdom of God. As the Apostle John recorded in that revelation he received on the island of Patmos, our use of time is meant to bear good fruit. We are called to bear a harvest which will accompany us into eternity. It will if we have an intimate relationship with the one who both gives and governs time. Time is a creature. It presents the opportunity for the Christian to bear this fruit that remains, to which Jesus referred in the Gospel of John when he said, and I quote, "It was not you who chose me, but I who chose you and appointed you to go and bear fruit that will remain, so that whatever you ask of the Father in my name, he may give you. This I command you, love one another." That's John 15, 16 and 17. We are the ones who decide whether we use time for the bearing of good fruit or allow it to become a tyrant who frightens us as we fruitlessly try to resist his inevitable claim on our perceived youth. This act of choosing rightly, daily, helps us to develop a disposition, a way of living that involves the proper exercise of our human freedom, aided by grace. When time is perceived as a gift from God and welcomed as an opportunity for bearing the fruits of love and holiness, we learn to receive it in love and perceive it as a field of choice and an environment for holiness. We choose to fill our lives with love and pour ourselves out for the God of love. When we live this kind of life, Jesus can find a home within us from which he can continue his redemptive mission in time. Are we bearing good fruit for the Lord?